So as a proofreader, of course, one of the big things that you're going to be expected to catch are spelling errors. Now, does this mean you have to be an absolutely perfect speller who knows the spelling of every single word on the planet? Of course not. We all have certain words that we have to think twice about. But what it does mean is that you're going to need two things. First of all, a reliable dictionary. And secondly, a sense of where the landmines are, by which I mean the common errors that trip people up. Now, I think there are 4 different types of spelling errors that you will find in a document, each one presenting a different challenge to you as a proofreader. So let's look at the first of those 4 types, which is basic typos. So typos, or typographical errors to use their full name, are errors that result from a wrong keystroke rather than a confusion about the spelling. So in other words, these errors originate in the writer's fingers rather than in their brain. And some common typos include spelling the T-E-H, or H-T-I-S for this, or A-D-N for and. Now, of course, a common spell checker will catch all these typos because the resulting letters don't form words. But you may be proofing someone else's document that they've not spell checked, so it's worth keeping your eye out for these. Also, there are common typos that spell check might not pick up because they create a word that does exist. One of the most common is form for from, of course. Other examples might include lean for learn, or, an embarrassing one here, pubic for public. And in fact, autocorrect might actually introduce typos by guessing the wrong word after a slipshod keystroke, like changing brids to birds instead of brides. The second type of spelling error to look out for are what I'd call mental block words. Now, these are words that spell checker will pick up on if your author has used a spell check, but if they haven't, they can still creep through. And these are words that may be quite common, but which many people struggle to remember. For example, for me, mental block words include words like bureaucracy. Does the EAU bit come before or after the R, and is that a C at the end or an S? Parallel is another one. Is it 1 R or 2? And how many L's was it again? And necessary, which I always have to remember by saying to myself, never eat cress, eat salad sandwiches and remain young. Now, the point about words like these isn't that you have to remember them every single time. You just have to be aware that you have a weakness for them, or that others might have a weakness for them, and that they're always worth double checking. In fact, one thing you might want to have to hand when you're proofreading is a list of commonly misspelled words. I'll put a link in the resources to one. A third type of spelling landmine to look out for are homophones, and these are possibly the trickiest landmine of all because they're words that are pronounced the same but spelled differently and with different meanings. There are many homophones, too many to go into detail here, but some common ones include little words like to and two, it's and its, and whose and whose. Then there's other common word pairs like effect and effect, peak and peak, rain and rain, principle and principle, and discreet and discreet. Now again, you don't necessarily need to be able to instantly know if a word is correct in the context of your document, but you do need to be aware that with word pairs like the ones we've just seen, even careful writers can struggle to remember them and get them right. So you need to have a sort of internal alarm system about all the possible homophones of a certain word. There's a great book called Who's Whose by Philip Gooden, which is a handy guide to easily confused words. And separately, I've created a series of videos available on my website and on YouTube with clear explanations of some of the most common homonyms and handy tips on how to remember which word to use. I'll put links to those in the resources. The fourth and final landmine you need to be aware of are geographical differences in spelling. For example, the difference between UK and US spelling. Now, which one you choose will depend on your readership, your publication, the style guide you're using. And what matters most is that you're consistent, that you're not mixing up different geographical spellings. We'll get on to consistency in a future lecture. In the meantime, here's a list of some of the most common differences between UK and US spelling. In some suffixes, that's endings, where UK spelling mostly uses an S, the US would replace the S with a Z. For example, recognise, analyse, rationalisation. The Z spelling seems to be the spelling that most annoys snobby English traditionalists who consider it a gross and overly modern Americanism. But some English style guides, such as that followed by the Oxford University Press, prefer this Z spelling because it's actually an older form reflecting the Greek origins of the suffix, whereas ISE is a relatively modern French spelling. Some other differences. Words that end in OUR in the UK appear in the US as OR, for example, colour and humour. Words ending in RE in the UK end in ER in the US, such as theatre and centre. In certain words in the UK you find a double consonant, which would have a single consonant in the US, for example, labelling and targeted. And certain words, often medical ones, have an AE or OE in the UK, which would just be an E in the US. Some examples would be fetus and haemoglobin. So those are the most common differences between UK and US spelling. There are other less common ones, and I'll put a link in the resources to a comprehensive list for you to refer to. In the meantime, coming up next is an exercise designed to test your ability to spot all 4 types of spelling landmine that we've looked at in this lecture. So do check it out and have a go.